everyone, welcome to week 2 of our vlog series. My name is Ellen and I am one of the writers here for Beautiful Melodies. I'm sure you're all kind of familiar with what our mission is for this blog at this point, but if you happen to be new to our website, I'd love to just give you a little rundown of what we're about. So, my teammates Arissa and Cora and I all decided to start this blog because of our shared passion for music, and not just music specifically, but how music and media affect each other. So we kind of explore the relationship between the two of those things, and we look at how that affects our daily lives. So we started out publishing blogs and podcasts, and now we're on to vlogs, which is super exciting. So with that, let's jump into today's topic, public relations. So today's episode is going to be pretty general. I'm just going to walk you through a history of public relations, some of its pros and cons, and kind of why the industry matters in the first place. But before diving into some of the specific events in the timeline of the development of public relations and talking about the history of it, I thought it'd be helpful to give a quick definition of what public relations actually is. I know I kind of only had a vague idea of what the term meant before doing some research, and I think that it's a term that's thrown around a lot, especially in the business world and the communications department. And because of just the prevalence of the term and the importance that it is to our lives, I think it's helpful to establish exactly what we mean by it. I found a helpful definition of public relations on the Public Relations Society of America website. They define public relations as a strategic communication process that builds mutually beneficial relationships between organizations and their publics. Some of the main things that the Public Relations Department is responsible for are communicating important information about an organization to the public, establishing and maintaining good relationships with the public, analyzing and interpreting how the public is reacting to a company's policies, setting objectives, planning, budgeting, recruiting, and developing new facilities. Essentially, I like to think of public relations as a kind of middleman between an organization and the public. They're kind of the link between the business world and the public world, and they facilitate the two-way communication that should take place between both sides. So, public relations is a relatively new practice since it really only took off in the early 20th century. New World Encyclopedia outlines some of the major points and people involved in the development of the Public Relations Department. The earliest publicists were used informally to promote events such as circuses, theaters, and other forms of entertainment. Fast forward a little bit, and the development and expansion of the railroad was one of the first ways that the practice of public relations was implemented. In fact, the first appearance of the word public relations was in the 1897 Yearbook of Railway Literature. Another key turning point for the public relations profession was the First World War. Edward Bernays, who's regarded as the founder of public relations, and Karl Bior were two influential figures during this time who founded the Committee on Public Information. The goal of the committee was to educate the public on the objectives of the U.S. during the war. Another influential figure, named Ivy Lee, is credited with promoting the idea that public relations is a two-way street, in that communication between an organization and the public needs to happen both ways. So slowly over time, public relations started to become a more organized and necessary profession that gained more and more public standing. Fast forward to today, and public relations is not only a booming industry in the U.S., but also in other countries. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says that in 1998, there were approximately 122,000 public relations specialists in the U.S., and approximately 485,000 advertising, marketing, and public relations managers working in all industries. And those numbers have only continued to grow since then. So hopefully it's clear to you by now that the realm of public relations has, by its nature, a pretty large effect on our society. We're daily bombarded with advertisements and information that is being channeled and directed by public relations. Though the direct effects can be hard to measure because of the complexity of the industry, the overall success of a business or organization is usually an indication of an effective public relations program. Before I wrap up for today, I want to go over some of the pros and cons of public relations. A website called nibusiness.co compares some of these advantages and disadvantages. Some advantages include, firstly, it's a credible and persuasive form of influence. Compared to paid advertisements, the influence of a public relations industry is generally viewed as more reliable and thus gains more people's trust. Another advantage is that when a message is conveyed in a winning and effective way, it can have a wider reach, especially when different news outlets broadcast the message. And finally, kind of related to the previous point, the last advantage is that utilizing public relations is a more cost-effective way to reach a large audience, rather than paying for individual advertisements. On the other hand, there are some disadvantages or challenges that public relations can bring. First, there's no way to directly control how and where your message will spread, and how your business might be portrayed through your message. Though a specific campaign might have good intentions, there's always a chance it'll be misconstrued or misunderstood by the public, which would have a negative effect on your business. Additionally, an organization is not guaranteed results from a public relations campaign, which could result in a waste of the time and money that was invested in it. Lastly, I know I touched on this a bit earlier, but because it's hard to measure the direct effect of public relations activities, it can be hard to determine the effect your campaign had on a specific demographic of people. I hope this brief conversation about the history and effects of public relations has been helpful to you guys. I know I've learned a ton from it and definitely feel like I have more of an awareness of what public relations means and what it's all about and the effects it's having on society. I'm super pumped to come back in a few days and look at the relationship between the music industry and public relations, so stay tuned for that episode, and I'll see you guys in a few days.